welcome back, and thank you for returning to Rhubarb Yoga today. So yes, we are back in the saddle again, and I hope you found something that surprised yourself perhaps last week. Maybe you found accessibility you didn't think was possible. Maybe you realised that using a chair isn't cheating in yoga, it's just an access point, which is always important. Looking at something from a different angle, a different perspective and a different way can really surprise us. And hopefully surprise us in a good way most of the time. Sometimes getting a different perspective can unnerve us, and it can also bring things up that make us reassess the situation we are in, our own self, our own judgments that we do naturally come to, and also the people that surround us on occasion, maybe less so at the moment. And our perspectives have changed, no matter how much we've assured ourselves everything's fine and we are doing okay. It is all right to acknowledge we are not doing okay sometimes. We are unnerved, we are unsettled, and maybe being readjusted, changing our way of moving into something, our perspective and our own judgment is always healthy, mentally and physically. Now today we're going to look at the hips, and we're not going to be sitting in a chair because weirdly enough that is not conducive for hip health, and our emotions are stored in our hips. So perhaps you've had a stressful point and you suddenly become very tight in the legs, your hamstrings are stiff, you don't feel like you can straighten up properly, the back's tight, and weirdly enough, that is down to our emotionality in our hip bones. So we're going to look at accessing some poses using our chair, maybe not in the way you imagined, but also some poses that we wish we could perhaps get into and be more comfortable in, that using a chair might feel better than using blocks, or getting down to the ground isn't quite there for you. Whether it's your physical limitations, constraints, or you have a physical issue that is just holding you from moving somewhere comfortable. By using the chair, we can allow ourselves confidence in ourselves, which is always important. Never doubt the body you have. Have confidence in the body you've got. So let's start putting something really nice and really easy. We're going to do cat-cow, which is normally on all fours. And we can do a kneeling cat-cow as well, which we've done, and that is used with hero's pose knees. So, but some people can't bend their knees and rest on them. Some people don't feel comfortable in that position. So let's look at using the seat. So I'm going to turn to the side so you can see the accessibility and the position I'm in, and I'm not going to change my position. I'm going to be in a seat that fits me, and please find a seat that fits you. It can be an armchair, it can be comfy. It doesn't, please don't use a stool. It needs to make sure you have a back that's secure and rigid. Don't choose wobbly legs, and make sure that you're comfortable sitting in it and you feel safe sitting in it. So let's turn our chair. Please make sure you've got a mat underneath you or a non-slip surface. Carpet is okay, but it's not ideal if you're going to try and put traction into it. You can slip on a carpet really quickly. Wooden flooring, not the best. If you get hot, you can slip with your sweat. Even if it's a yoga towel, please have something non-slip just to protect yourself too. So we're going to come to a secure seat. I'm going to make sure the back is against the back of the chair. It may sound weird, but the back doesn't automatically go against the back. Sometimes we have a habit of perching forward, particularly if you suffer from lower back pain. You might feel tight and anxious, and the anxiousness comes into the hips and creates that emotional tightness which we're trying to relieve. So by sitting into the back naturally, we're allowing the spine to relax, which is always important. But what I want you to do now is to take a breath in and allow the body just to rise that little bit. Keep the feet grounded, spread those toes, make sure that you can feel all four corners corners of your feet, your big toe, little toe, back outer heel, inner heel too. Spread those feet, make sure they're comfy. And by placing the hands on the knees, we're upright, but we're not stiff. And stiffness is what we're trying to remove. So let's place the hands on the knees, and we're going to breathe in. I'm picturing we were doing a cat-cow. We're breathing in with the cow, and we're coming forward. The chest is lifting, not up, but out. Coming forward, the belly's sinking in. The curve in the back is your degree of curve. Even if it's tiny, you're still creating that action. It's not about the size of the action, it's the action of process. So please be kind to yourself, taking that breath in. And then breathing out, we're going to curve away, sinking that chest, letting the back curve out, the belly sink back, the chest sink back, the chin comes towards the chest too, the head and neck relaxes. Breathing in. To come forward again, arcing out, not up. So just experiment. When you arc forward, you can feel the mid-back, the mid-thorax start activating. But if you arc up, it comes higher under the shoulder blades, and that's where we create strain. And that's not what the process here is. The cat-cow is to release the spine, allow that vertebrae to open up, that string of pearls to start releasing, creating a fluid sensation. Let's do one more. And by creating this action, we don't want to pull on the knees either. We can push against the kneecaps and create problems there. So allow the hands and the palms to rest on the top of the knee, fingers draped overwards. So as we move, we create an attraction in the arm, not in the kneecap and fingers, just a gentle hold. So hopefully that's started to get a little bit of movement and process working. Now we're going to turn around and we're going to look at another pose that is used for release, that we may be able to look at in a different way too. We're going to do squat. We're going to do malasana. Now malasana is not comfortable for everybody. Some people cannot get their heels to the ground, and that is not a problem either. You can always have blocks under those feet. It is never a problem. It's how deep your body allows you to go and not forcing past that depth. So initially, we're going to come and just allow the feet to come out a little bit and point away, wider than hip width. If we're wider than hip width, we're allowing the hips to open, the pelvis to expand out like a flower, and allow some space inside the pelvis, and hopefully start removing some of that emotional tightness that we may be carrying without us even realising. So we can place our hands on the seat of the chair. We're just going to bend the knees. And we can use this to wherever is comfortable for us. I naturally have a tendency to go wide-footed because that's my hip space. And that's comfortable for me. And if your heels aren't going down, blocks underneath, absolutely fine. Please still do that. We may be using the chair as a prop, but there's nothing stopping you adding props to create comfort and that accessibility point, which is the whole point. So if your feet are a little narrower and they tend to point forward, that is not a problem, but we need that hip width and wider. So coming down, and you might feel comfortable, and you might want to use this as a more calming pose. So you can place the hands on the seat, forehead on the hands, and just allow the natural gravity of the lower back and the pelvis to start creating space. The thighs are against the ribs, so we can allow that body to drop even further, but we don't want to curve the back too much. We want to try and allow, by placing the hands on the palms, allow the body to naturally sink, using gravity, not force or pressure. And if, for some reason, your shoulders aren't comfortable in this position, you don't like placing your head on your hands, I myself aren't always comfortable doing that, then we have another option. So we can turn the chair, or come to the back of it, and this is one more choice we have. For anyone that has subluxed shoulder joints, hypermobility, severe EDS or HDS, I suffer from that myself, it's always useful to realise, do not hyperextend. Find comfort. And it's very easy for the body to adapt to its own way of coping with a particular pose when we don't even realise it. And with hypermobility, it's quite a dangerous position to allow your body to naturally go to. By keeping a certain regime of the way your body comes into it, it's a healthy way, and it creates a stability, a flexibility and a strength eventually too, which you may not even realise. But as you start to gently apply these things, it can make quite a difference. So looking at squat in a different way, step away from the back of the chair, come into the squat, in your squat, and allow the hands to rest on the back of the chair. Now this allows gravity to hold the arms, but what it also does, it keeps a gentle bend in the shoulder. It allows the actual shoulder itself not to become pressured, not to hyperextend in or through an internal, external rotation out. And by placing the hands between the legs, that's not always comfortable for people. You can also create hyperextension by forcing them between the thighs, and also by pushing the hands together can also affect the shoulder joint itself for some. So by creating the hands on the back of the chair or gripping the side of the chair, by doing that we're creating the shape. We're having Malasana, we're in Malasana, but we're not worried about where our arms are. And these are almost extra to the pose. When we're coming into a standing Malasana without props and the hands come between the legs with palms together, or even fists, if you're that flexible, we're not considering the shoulder joints. But sometimes if we're having to use a prop, we need to consider the extra joints that are additional to a pose that we may not even consider are important. So by holding the back of the chair or holding the top, we're allowing gravity to create this looseness and openness here without worrying about our hands coming between our legs, which is not necessarily an important factor. So coming back up, let's look at one more. We're going to look at figure 4. Figure 4 pose, eye of the needle. Now traditionally, this is done sitting down, and we'll have a leg extended, and we'll bend the foot, and we'll put it just above the knee, and then we'll bend the lower foot, and we'll come closer in. And this is quite a deep hip flexor expansion, and it can feel very uncomfortable for some. It can be quite intense, and if we are people that tend to hold our emotionality in our hips, or some women are suffering particularly uncomfortably at moments through the month, our pain is quite intense there, our discomfort is intense, there is bloating, there is swollen bellies, so we need to be able to alleviate that. And if we sit in a chair, the alleviation is lighter. There is a better accessibility than forward folding, trying to crunch our belly towards our folded leg, and even though that tightness in our hips may feel like it's expanding, we're also concertinaing the belly, and that is just not comfortable sometimes. So doing it in a chair might increase your accessibility. So let's look at it in a different way. So feet flat, and we're going to bring one leg up just to start opening the hip a little bit. By doing this, we're not forcing the leg up, we're not crunching around with the kneecap, we're not going to mess around with under or over extension of the knee. What we're going to do is we're going to simply place the foot at the top of the thigh before the kneecap, and we're always going to flex that foot. By flexing the foot, we're keeping the knee safe. If we're messing around with it, we're not keeping this knee steady and secure, and there is a risk of twisting the joint. But anybody that suffers from hypermobility, you're going to know that that hurts sometimes. So let's get ourselves nice and balanced, and that can be it. We can put the foot under the block and raise that, and by raising it up, we're going to definitely start activating this, and it's going to feel, it's going to kick in. You're going to feel it working its way down. You might feel it coming up towards the thigh, but you're definitely going to feel it into the lower glute, side of the hip, hip extenders, possibly into the psoas too. And opening that psoas is a valuable and key muscle. As I said last week, it attaches itself from through the pelvis, wrapping its way round and up into the lower thoracic ribs. So it's a very intense, a very strong muscle, and by expanding it, it allows us to hold ourselves upright. It creates a core strength, more of a factor than our own, what we class as core or six-pack. So by doing our figure 4, we're starting to create extra muscle looseness that we didn't even think or consider. So if that is feeling all right, you can attempt to place the hand under the thigh and bring it up. But then you're activating and pulling at the body, and it's not going to do you any good. So we're going to look at it in a different way. We're going to lower the foot, and then we're going to hook the hands under the top foot. By doing this, we need to keep that foot flexed. But what we're also doing is we're still activating, but we're not putting pressure on the lower back, which is key. You don't want to open something and cause jarring or strain in the other area. So just by gently lifting that away from the thigh, and we can just wiggle it from side to side if we're feeling comfortable. And then lower it back down. Please take your time with this, don't just drop the limb. By jarring it, you can create more sensation that's not valuable sensation. So let's drop and balance. So we're going to bring that foot back up. We're going to stretch it by doing this as well. We're going to start activating those hamstrings at the back of the leg. Also starting to warm up that hip, telling us we're going to do some movement. We're not sure what direction, but we want to let it know it's about to be used. Then we're going to flex that foot and place it on top of the thigh. And both sides of our body are different. One side is tighter, one side feels like it's more accessible. You will know this, the more poses you do, the more movements you do, and the more flows that you do. You'll know what side feels stronger and what side seems that you can go deeper into. And when you get into hip openers and more intensive key areas of work, you'll realise where's your tight spots, where do you feel looser, where do you feel more relaxed, and you'll get to know that. So sitting here, keeping that foot flexed, I'm going to raise the bottom foot just to start activating and working into it, and then we're going to raise that leg, keeping that foot flexed, and just bringing it up, just a little bit. It does not have to be high, just off the thighs plenty, but don't curve the back over. Please don't do that. Make sure that the arm is using its muscle and it's lifting it toward you. By lifting it towards you, you're activating the outer glute and the IT band up the side of the thigh that comes into the knee. So that in itself is starting to work too. And then you can start wiggling one side to the other, very gently, without any strain. If you hear any pops or clicks, that can happen. That's just residue sitting in the joints of air pockets and debris. If you feel pain, please stop. So we're going to come back down. And then we've got one more. This is a definite hip area of the forward fold. We're going to go into the straddle or wide-legged forward fold. And this can scare people because it feels very intensive, and anybody that feels slightly unbalanced or don't feel like they've got good control or good core work don't feel confident in this pose because they think that it has to be the stomach that's doing the work to allow them to be upright and folding forward, and it's far from that. So we're going to look at it with the chair and show you a different way. Okay. So having the chair facing forward, what we want to do is we're just going to open our feet slightly. So feet are parallel, toes facing forward, and normally in a wide leg forward fold or a straddle, hands will go on hips, and we will allow the chest to come forward, engaging the thighs so they're strong. We're not thinking about the core right now. Our legs are keeping us strong, and they're going to bring us forward to the chair. And this, normally, we wouldn't have the chair, we'd be folding forward, we'd have hands on the mat, hands on blocks, and hands would be under the shoulders. And then we can make that more intensive by coming further in between the use the chair to create the folding action in the hips, which is the key point of the pose. So again, hands can be on hips, but if you don't feel that you're comfortable doing that, just gently reach for the chair. As long as the legs are engaged, they will be your support system until you come close enough. And that's the important part, keeping the legs strong, not rigid, but let the thighs do some work for you. Feet flat on the floor, toes forward, and feet spread and fully engaged. Hands can be on hips or reaching for the chair. And we don't want to be so far forward the head is hitting the back of the chair, but we want to be enough so that our hands allow us to come into a 90-degree angle. We don't want to fall forward so the arms can't support us, and we don't want to be curled up into a low back bend. We want to make sure our spine is healthy by doing this. So by doing it in front of a mirror perhaps, or a large television so you can see yourself to get used to that sensation of being in 90 degrees. And once we're here, keeping the legs strong, you're going to feel the back of those thighs working now. I want you to bring the arms in front, and you can rest the forehead on the arms and allow the actual shape itself to start working, feeling the hamstrings starting to work and open, but making sure we're not folding and curving down. We're keeping that back nice and straight and strong. And folding forward like this, if this is just not right for you, you can look at it in one more different way. You can turn the chair round. We can have the hands on the back of the chair if you have a chair that can give you this opportunity. So again, you're going to widen the legs, and you might have to jiggle the chair around a little bit to get that positioning right. So we're going to fold forward, and our legs don't need to be massively wide either. Traditionally, in yoga, it said if you put your arms out parallel, if you dropped a string or a plumb line from the wrist, that's the width your feet should be. I've never done it. My eye line isn't terrible. Some days I could stretch further, but I'm not too worried. So don't punish yourself. We're going to fold forward, keeping that leg strong and engaged, and we're going to place the hands on the back of the chair. This might encourage a more 90-degree angle for you. Holding the back of the chair, again, could feel more comfortable because you're gripping. You feel that you're holding that 90-degree shape a little better, and you can allow the neck to relax in a more comfortable place for you. Walk the hands up to come out of that shape too. So there you go. Wide leg forward fold or straddle in a slightly different position. Now we're going to go for one more. We're going to do extended side angle, which might seem a little bit perhaps advanced for some or unfamiliar for some. And it's going to be another one where we shift the chair, but it allows you to expand the side of the body, strengthen the groin and the thighs, definitely activate the hips, but also it allows a little bit of chest expansion and another way of looking at this shape, whether you're familiar with it or not. So traditionally, side angle, bent front leg, extended back leg, and we bring the arm to the front thigh. We have the arm above or over the ear, and for the more intense or more advanced pose, we have the foot on the outside or the inside of the front knee, and then the arm comes over the ear, and we turn the chest towards the ceiling, looking towards the front hand, and the back leg is expanded and strong with this full side expansion down to the foot. However, that's not for everyone. Not everyone has that accessibility. So let's use the chair to look at that. Just like we did Warrior 2 last time, we're going to shuffle back and use that chair to fit us, which is what we have to do sometimes. So what I would like you to do your straddle and turn that and bring the chair in. And now by doing this, we can adjust. We're going to bend that front leg. We're going to extend out with that back leg. And please don't worry about how far the legs are extending. It's not necessary. As long as this leg can be strong for you and you can ground the back foot, that's all that matters. Adjust the front leg so the knee is over the ankle, it's straight and it's strong. And this is where the important part comes. We need to engage that back leg and not worry about that front knee too much. But we're going to now bend that arm. So we need to make sure we've got a direct line. As with our normal extended side angle, if we were doing it without props, there would be a line. It would be front foot directly in line with back foot. So the heel is in line with the arch. And then we have that long line across the body, so we're not twisting back and we're not curving forward. But by doing the chair, we have that possibility of tweaking and getting the positioning right without worrying about the strength in our legs too much. So let's place the elbow on the knee, get our positioning nice and strong, engage that back leg. When you engage that, you might suddenly feel that you're lifting off the chair just a little bit, and that's great. It means the groin's activated, the back thigh is working, the hips are definitely going to feel a little bit of work in the front leg mainly because of the right angle. But then what we need to do is make sure we're not bearing all our top body weight on this front arm. And this is where we bring the top arm into counterbalance. So let's extend and expand through the back leg and engage. And then we're going to bring that right up pointing. And then you're going to feel the expansion through the belly, into the side ribs, into costal muscles, and possibly into the side of the belly too. So we're going to rest up, allowing that top arm to expand up. If we want to extend, we can reach forward. And this is where you're definitely going to feel lateral stretching all the way down, possibly from the armpit to that back foot, keeping that leg engaged. Please breathe and raise the arm and lower that body down. Now you might feel there was some weight in that front leg with your front arm, and that is very simply because the legs are not fully engaged because we have the chair for support. But please don't worry about it. By activating it and using it through the chair, you build the strength up in those legs, and that can slowly and gradually evolve into a pose without needing the chair if that's where you get to. But it's not the end of the world if you don't. You're still creating that shape through the full torso, which is the side of angle the body is trying to protect. That's what matters. The legs are strong, they're in the right alignment, the body's working, your core is working, you're breathing, and you're immersed in that shape. That's where it's important. So just turning around, looking at the other side. So we're going to open up, and then we're going to turn that foot round. Keeping it facing forward, heel to the arch, and then we're going to bend that leg, and we're going to lower down, and then we're going to adjust. And adjusting is always important. Don't feel you're cheating in any way. So bringing the knee over the ankle, foot facing forward, back leg is definitely strong. We're going to lower elbow onto that thigh. Then we're going to engage that back leg and suddenly feel like we've lifted just a little bit. Important not to curve the body forward. Keep it in line. And by keeping it in line, you'll suddenly feel that the front arm feels a little lighter. And then we're going to raise that top arm up, expanding through, keeping the back leg strong, opening up through the laterals, and then possibly going over the ear. But it's not the end of the world if you don't. Again, with shoulder rotation, it doesn't always work for you. Gazing towards the fingers, but again, if your neck is not built that way, arm up is absolutely fine. And then coming down. And that is that for this week. So I hope you find some accessibility in the ones that I've shown you today. I've perhaps changed your perspective of a couple of poses that you weren't familiar with or didn't think they were for you either. And I hope that gives you a little bit of inspiration to just give them a go. Please enjoy them, please have fun, and please be well. Thank you.